everyone, this is Brooke from Burnley and Trowbridge, and you're joining us for part 2 of our mantelet sew along. Last time we cut out our pattern, cut out our fabrics, and lined the hood and the body of the mantelet. Now we're going to put it all together. We're going to start with the hood, which we've lined along the front straight edge and the curved back edge. We're going to lay right sides together along the curved edge, lining it up from the neckline to the fold over the top of the head. And I have a pin here that's marking where the pleat mark is on the back of the pattern. So this section is going to get pleated, this section is going to get stitched. So let's pin this edge together. So now, with our right sides pinned together, we're going to use the butted whip technique to stitch the lower back seam of the hood from the bottom edge to the pleat mark. So you can see I'm just stitching through the outer layer in the ivory, and I'm not catching the salmon lining. Alright, now that our seam has been done with the whipped butted technique, you can open it up and smooth it out. See how that looks. And that holds really nicely from both sides. So now we can work on this upper part of the back of the hood that needs to be pleated. So now we can run evenly spaced gathering stitches between the pleat marks here that we had whipped up to, and we're going to go around over the top of the hood and come back down. And we're going to do these about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch from the back edge. And I am going to use heavier thread for this than I've been using for the rest of it. This is the 30 weight quilter's thread or twist, as opposed to the 50 weight sewing silk, just because I want a little extra strength as I pull in those pleats. So as I said, we can run these gathering stitches about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch in from the hemmed edge. I'm going to try to do about 1/8 of an inch, and these don't need to be really tiny. These can actually be about 3/4 to 1 inch long running stitches. And you can play around with the different lengths of your running stitches to see what works best with the fabric you're using. I think I can go a little bit bigger. So I'm going to try to go ahead and go for that full inch. Alright, so now that I've gotten all the way around to the back, I'm going to pull that up really tight. After you have your pleats knotted and you can fold them towards each other, you see that they're not going to lay flat. They're actually going to be sort of on the edge ridged like this, the way you see with cartridge pleats. Now, you can pull them super tight before you knot it off so that they're really close together, but as I'm going to put a bow on the outside of this, on the back, I'm not worried about getting that quite as tight. I am, though, going to do a row of little tacking back stitches about 1/2 inch away from the opening, just to hold these pleats in place. So I'm going to start here on this first one here on the left, about 1/2 inch back. I'm going to go through the next row of pleats. And then I'm going to go back just a little ways and go all the way to the third pleat. And continue that all the way around. Going back, one pleat, going through the second pleat, all the way to the third one. Alright, so I have finished that little tacking stitch, and you can adjust things a little as you go to arrange them and make them a little bit even. And then on the outside, you can see how cute that lays. And so now we have a hood. Ta-da! All right, now it's time to attach the hood to the body of the mantelet. To begin with, I suggest basting the neckline of your hood from the front all the way around to the front, so these two fabrics don't slide around. And then fold it in half to mark the center point of your neckline. And make sure you put in your pleating marks on both sides, here and here. Then we're going to take our neckband, fold it in half as well, mark the center, and then fold back on the short ends the seam allowance that goes at the front of the neck. Now, we're going to lay right sides together from the center back of the neckband and the body of the mantelet and pin that together. Next, we're going to take that folded back front edge of the neckband and match it up with where our hem on the front of the mantelet finished, right here at that point. And that was marked as well in your pattern. I'm going to put the pin in there. And we're going to put another pin in right where that pleating mark is. And you want to do that on both sides. So now we're going to fit the body of the mantelet into the neckline piece between the pleating marks on both sides. To do this, you can either divide and conquer, where you mark the center, and then the quarter and the quarter to ease it in. I prefer to just do it by eye and see what lays nicely. You may have to play around with this a little bit until you get something that you like. The number and depth and placement of the pleats may vary with both the fabric choice and the body type. For the best results, we recommend pinning the pleats. So now that I've pinned my pleats in to fit, I am going to check and make sure I like the look of it from the outside. And that looks pretty good. I could play with the adjustment of moving this pleat over a little bit and moving this one forward ever so slightly. I think that's what we'll do. Yes, that's perfect. All right, now that we've done it on one side, we'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, now we're going to backstitch the neckband to the mantelet body, starting at the very front edge. If this feels a little awkward here, don't worry, it'll all line up once we put the lining into it. All right, now to attach the hood, we're going to put the center of the back of the hood to the center of the neckband, right sides together. And make sure that your hood also has your marks from the pattern for where the pleats will start. Take the front edge of the hood and bring it all the way to the front edge of the neckband. And then we're going to pin the hood to the neckband smooth all the way from the front edge to the pleating mark on the back of the hood. And you can see, unlike the body of the mantelet, we have very little fabric here left to pleat in. So maybe 1 or 2 pleats just here in the very back. There we go. And then we can easily do the same thing on the other side. And it's up to you of whether you want your pleats on the inside to go towards the center, which means they go away from the center on the outside. Since the pleats on the body of the mantelet are going towards the center, I want the pleats on the hood to do the same thing. So I'm going to put the pleat towards the center, so that means the lining pleat goes away from the center, but on the outside it will go the correct direction that I want. All right, so let's now backstitch our neckband to our hood. You'll notice that for both the body and the hood, I'm stitching it to the neckband with the backstitching coming from the neckband, since that is on the straight of grain, while both the body of the mantelet and the hood are slightly off grain. So it's much easier for me to keep my seam allowance even by stitching from the inside of the neckband. All right, so here we have the hood attached to the body. It's pretty messy in here, but you can see on the outside that it all lays quite nicely. So you're going to press the seam allowances towards the neckband from both the hood and the body, so that all of these raw edges are here in the neckband, and we can place our lining over top. And with our lining, we're actually going to fold back the seam allowances on all 4 edges. When you get to the ends, you're going to need to tidy these seam allowances around the seam allowances of the neckband, and that can be a little bit bulky, but you should just be able to slide your lining around the outer fabric and just tuck it in on both sides. You can start from any part of the neckline. I'm going to start with the ends, since those were so tricky to get them to slide in. I don't want to lose that. Now that the body of our mantelet is assembled, it is time to add our trim. Now, I don't know about you, but I never thought I was going to finish hemming all of this. But it's done, so we're ready to go. I have taken my trim and marked 9 inches into it, and I've marked a similar 6 inches on the cloak body itself. You'll see in a moment why that's important. Now, there are a variety of ways in which you can trim your mantelet. I'm going to explain 3 options, but actually do only one of them. Now, the first option is what you typically do on trim on gowns, where you fold it right side together and you whip gather along the fold. We have a video that shows you exactly how to do that. The second common way to put trim onto mantelets that we've seen in various extents is what is shown in the pattern for this mantelet. We simply do a line of running stitches down the center of our finished strip, about 4 to 6 stitches per inch, depending on your fabric. With either of these methods, we recommend using the divide and conquer method to attach the trim to the mantelet. So this is why I marked it with 9 inches on this piece of trim, and we're going to gather it down to about 6 inches. So I'll just pin it here at the center where my center pin is. I gave myself a little bit of extra fabric here for when I get the rest of the trim around. I have a way to connect them together. And I am putting this row of gathering stitches right on the edge of the cloak. You can have it up a little further, you can stagger it in different ways, but I prefer for this kind to lay it right on the edge. And so then take the 9 inches and pin it to the 6. And with the divide and conquer, you can actually mark the center of that 6 inches on the mantelet and the center on the 9 inches of the trim and make them match up and continue, or you can just do it by eye, as I'm going to. So I gather it up and then sort of stroke with your fingers the gathers back and forth to lay in nice and even. Once you're happy with their arrangement, anchor your gathering threads. And you can do this in 6-inch increments, or you could gather up the next 9 inches and gather it down to 6 and then do another section. It depends on how much thread you put on to the needle for the gathering. At this point, you can baste or simply just pin where you want the trim to sit and then do a running back stitch through the center of your gathers into the body of the mantelet. So there's a third option of how to trim the mantelet that I'm going to discuss today and actually show you, and that's how to pleat trim onto the body of the mantelet. Now, we're going to sort of use the divide and conquer. We're going to stick with the 9 inches down to 3 inches, but it's not going to be as exact because of how the pleat pattern develops. So I'm going to try it with just the first 9 inches down to 6, and it might end up being 8.5 or 9.5. We're just going to see what works best because I'm using the stripes on this trim to sort of dictate how I want to make it work. So I'm going to start by putting my seam allowance just a little past my center mark. And I am going to go ahead and center my pleating here on the body, but I could always drop it down so that it's a third, so that I have a little bit more hanging off if I want. It's completely up to you. All right. Putting the 9 inches at the 6-inch pin, just to give myself sort of a sense of where it needs to fit to. I'm going to play with how much fabric needs to be pleated in for this to fit. So let's start with every 2 inches. Let's see. Okay, so let's see. Every 2 squares, I'll pleat in 2. And very quickly we can see that's not going to work. I didn't get very far. So I need a little less fabric in the pleat. Let's go 1, 2, 3, and then maybe just put 1 pleat in there. And at this point, I don't need to mark 9 inches, 6 inches at all. I can just continue with my pleating pattern. So every three squares, I can do my pleat. Now you can pleat the entire way around the mantelet and then stitch. I'm going to stitch for a bit and then pleat some more and then stitch for a bit. I'm going to be doing a running stitch with a few back stitches as I go along. I find that the back stitches are best saved for where the actual pleat is. So some small running stitches, do a little back stitch here in the middle, a few more small running stitches. When I get to the pleat, I come up and then I go back to behind the pleat to hold it in place. And then some more running stitches. All right, now when you get to the corner of the mantelet, it's a little tricky to turn that corner. But what you can simply do if you're pleating or gathering is you're going to ease it so that a lot of the fabric is pulled up into the body as you're making the turn, and the actual fabric that's doing the turn is spread out. It doesn't need to have the full depth of the pleat or the gather. It can be a little flat there, and that's fine. So in this case, I'm going to start sheeting my pleats a little earlier. I'll sort of do that here, where I'm putting more depth at the top and less at the bottom of the pleat. And you might find it's tricky to get all the way down to here and then make the sharp turn. So it's all right if a little bit of this is deeper here on the sides, but pretty shallow here right at the point. It's whatever works best. It's really whatever the fabric wants to do. Getting close to returning to normal, and then by the time we get to this pleat, 1, 2, 3, we are back to our proper spot with the depth of the top and the bottom being the same. So that's one way to turn the corner. Now, after you've turned the corner, continue on up over the hood, back down the other side, and all the way back around to the center. The trim is complete. I made it all the way to the center with this much to spare. Whew, that was close. Let's see. Oh, wait, one last thing. We're almost done. We just need to add some closures. Now, you can add hooks and eyes here if you want, but you could also add a tape or some kind of ribbon. If you hadn't finished off the outer edges of the facing at the neck, you could run a tape through it to draw it up even tighter to your neck. But since this one fits us pretty well at the neck, we are just going to add some silk ribbon, since we found that our coral silk goes so well with the lining. So I chose about 1 yard of silk ribbon. I'm using the 1¼ inch wide. Going to cut it in half. I've left it angled on the bottom edge. Here at the neck, so we're going to fold the raw edge under, lay it to the inside of the neck of our cloak, pin it in, and then whip all the way around that. This is extremely accurate to the 18th century. These are all sort of pinky, corally orange colors, and none of them are exactly the same. And that's totally okay. And now we're going to whip this all the way around. And here, where I get to the side of the ribbon that's along the neck, I'm going to just do a running backstitch to tack that into place. And when you get to this fourth side, you can whip through it, but I find it easier to do a little running backstitch. And now we have our finished mantelet ready for us to wear. We can wear it down, or we can wear it up. What do you think? Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this mantelet sew along. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you find our videos helpful. And until next time, happy sewing.